The Soviets knew exactly what the Americans were doing underground, and they waited 2 years before saying anything. It's May 1956. A Soviet colonel named Pyotr Popov walks into the American compound in Vienna with documents stuffed inside his uniform. He's about to blow open one of the most audacious intelligence operations ever mounted. But here's what makes this moment so sharp. The operation he's warning about has already been running for 18 months. It's buried, literally buried, under the rubble of Berlin. Let's rewind. It's early 1953. The city of Berlin sits fractured like a broken plate, American, British, and French sectors on one side, Soviet on the other. The Iron Curtain isn't metaphorical here. It's a wall of checkpoints, barbed wire, and guards with orders to shoot. And beneath this divided city runs something the West desperately needs: Soviet telephone cables. The CIA and MI6, that's British intelligence, realized something extraordinary. If they could tap those cables without the Soviets knowing, they'd hear Soviet military communications, intelligence assessments, diplomatic secrets, everything. And they had a plan so audacious it almost seemed impossible: dig a tunnel. The tunnel started in the American sector of Berlin, in a nondescript building that looked like a radar station, perfect cover. From there, it stretched nearly 1,600 feet toward the Soviet sector. The engineers had to go deep, deep enough that vibrations from the street above wouldn't collapse it, deep enough that Soviet sweep detectors wouldn't find it. Construction began in secret. American and British engineers worked in shifts, hauling out soil, shoring up walls with steel and concrete. They had to be invisible. No trucks arriving at odd hours, no construction noise at night, just quiet, methodical work by men who understood that discovery meant not just failure, it meant arrest, possibly worse. By the spring of 1955, the tunnel was complete. At the end, technicians installed a tap chamber, a small vault where they could intercept the Soviet cables. This wasn't crude wiretapping, this was surgical. The cables were spliced, rerouted through recording equipment, then spliced back together so perfectly that no one monitoring the line would notice a thing. For 18 glorious months, the tunnel worked. American and British intelligence officers sat in that chamber listening to Soviet generals, diplomats, and spymasters talk. They recorded conversations, they took notes, they heard about Soviet military deployments, weapons programs, even internal KGB disputes. It was an intelligence jackpot. But the Soviets weren't foolish. They knew the tunnel existed. In fact, they'd known about it almost from the beginning. A Soviet intelligence officer had warned them. That officer was the same man who'd walk into Vienna in May 1956, Pyotr Popov. He'd been passing secrets to the Americans, and he'd told them, "Your tunnel is compromised." Here's the cold calculation at the heart of this story. The Soviets had a choice: expose the tunnel immediately and embarrass the West, or let it run while they fed it false information. They chose the second option. For months, they whispered lies into those cables, knowing Americans were listening. Disinformation, misdirection, false military strength. It was counterintelligence at its most elegant and cruel. When the Soviets finally revealed the tunnel in April 1956, just weeks before Popov's defection, they did it with theatrical precision. They invited Western journalists into East Berlin, walked them down into the exposed tunnel, and photographed them standing in it. "Look what the capitalists did," they said. "This is Western imperialism." But here's what the newspapers didn't say. The Soviets had allowed the operation to continue for months after discovering it. They'd used it as a weapon against the very intelligence services that built it. American and British analysts spent months analyzing Soviet communications that were carefully crafted lies. Operations were planned on false assumptions. Resources were misdirected. The tunnel itself became a tourist attraction. East German authorities kept it open, let visitors walk through it. A monument to Western arrogance, they called it. Today, the site is gone, rebuilt, redeveloped, absorbed back into the city. But the tunnel's legacy isn't about the structure. It's about what it reveals about espionage itself. Everyone thinks espionage is about stealing secrets. They're wrong. Sometimes it's about controlling what the other side thinks they know. The tunnel under Berlin wasn't a failure because it was discovered. It was a failure because it was allowed to succeed just long enough to matter, then weaponized against those who built it. Pyotr Popov, the Soviet defector who warned the Americans, was captured by the KGB in 1959. He was executed in 1960. His warning about the tunnel saved lives. The operation might have continued far longer without his intelligence, but it couldn't save him. The irony sits heavy. The man who tried to expose Soviet deception became its victim. Operation Gold, that's what the Americans called it, remains one of history's most sophisticated surveillance operations, and one of its most complex failures, not because it was discovered, but because discovery was always part of someone's plan. In the shadow war beneath Berlin, the real victory belonged to whoever understood that the best secrets are the ones your enemy thinks they've stolen. The tunnel's concrete walls are gone now. The cables that ran through it were rerouted decades ago. But the questions it raised about intelligence, deception, and the cost of secrets, those never got buried. They're still here, still relevant, still waiting for anyone curious enough to dig. Subscribe for the untold stories of Cold War espionage, where the most dangerous operations are the ones where you never know whose side the truth is on.